But welcome to our App Academy, and I will now hand the reins over to Xero.
Awesome. Thank
All
you
right.
so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Awesome. So just a little bit about Xero and myself. Xero is like a cloud accounting solution. A little bit about myself is I am a licensed CPA. I have practiced for about 7 or 8 years prior to joining Xero. Been at Xero for about 4 years now, and helping our accounting partners kind of navigate to the cloud, help with external app partners as well, what connects well with Xero, which you'll hear more about today. But I have a background in tax and basically like accounting, financial prep. So really what we're going to go through today is just kind of talk through the platform so you can kind of get a feel for what it looks like. And then I'll kind of briefly touch on the partner program. Really what that means is you can sign up free for our partner program. You'll be assigned a account rep and a partner consultant, which is my role. And really what that means is we're technical product experts within the platform. So if you have any workflow type questions as you kind of work through the platform or accounting related questions, we'll be able to kind of help you with that. But I'm going to jump into it. I hope we'll have some time for questions at the end too. So feel free to throw them in the Q&A and I'll try to get to those at the end. But really where we're going to start within Xero is Xero HQ. So this is kind of like your hub. So clients that you manage will not have access to this screen. This is only for you as the firm or the owner to kind of be able to utilize. So what this allows you to see is a list of all clients. You're able to segment those in any capacity that you want. So if there's, certain business types, if there's certain clients that are in like certain high net worth groups, whether it be like parent-child relationships, brother-sister relationships within these companies as well, you can put these into multiple groups. So it doesn't have to just be one, it can be multiple, and you can dissect those in any ways that you see fit. You're also able to assign staff members at leisure to these as well. So you can assign multiple staff members to the client. You can click a staff member and say, hey, I want to invite them into multiple clients. So it's easy enough to invite the staff members, remove the staff members, depending on when you need to. You'll also have this HQ role that you want to set up for them. This will just kind of allow what is their main access with it. Are they able to add new clients? Are they not able to add new clients? Are they able to access all clients, or do they have to be managed by you? I'll also briefly talk about this practice tab because this will give you some more information about the partner program. So you can see here kind of your status as you move through our partner program. As you kind of level up, you'll unlock discounts for yourself and your firm. You'll also get the advisor directory listing, which will help connect you with new potential clients. You'll be able to manage your certifications, see the staff certifications, how many are actually certified. You'll also get a free Xero organization here to manage your books or do whatever you see fit with. You'll also have access to this demo company, which is a great place it's like a sandbox environment to test everything out that you would want to test transactions, imports, exports, app partners, bank feeds, etc. So use this to kind of test things. You can always reset it as well, which I really like because then that way I can do a couple different trials and not have to wait for it to automatically reset or reset it myself. And then lastly, once you're part of the partner program, you will see who your Xero contact is right here with their email address. So feel free to reach out to them right away and try to schedule some meetings with them. You also have some different partner resources here. So we have like Learning in Xero Central, which will be where you can access Xero certification, which will give you CPE. And you'll also be able to launch like Xero Central within here, which is more of kind of like a Google for Xero, if you will. It'll be like, how do I do X in Xero? So this will kind of walk you through step-by-step in some of those processes. The last piece I always like to touch on before I kind of jump into the actual platform itself is report templates. I'm not going to jump too much into it, but I'm more or less just going to let you know kind of what it does. And at a high level overview, really what it does is you can build out a reporting package at your firm-wide level that you want to push down to every client you have on Xero. So let's say maybe you have a ton of like landlords or Schedule Es that clients are managing. Well, maybe you want to build one standard template within Xero that you can push down to each client you have on Xero. There's a different way to create these reports, which I don't have time to get into today, but if you are interested in that, definitely reach out to us. We'll connect you with the account rep or the partner consultant that would be assigned to you, and we can kind of go through that in more detail. But let's go ahead and jump into Xero then. I'll zoom in a little bit because I'm not sure what everybody's screen looks like, but this is the dashboard of Xero. This is when you log in, this is what you're going to see. Your main navigational menu within Xero is always in this upper left-hand corner where you can jump into any of these different applications or back to Xero HQ where I just was, switch between different accounts that you're working with. This is also where you would invite clients in if that's the case, or check the subscription and billing. But really on this page, really there's a couple things that I want to point out. And the first is your connected bank accounts. So you have the option to show these if you want to. If you say, you know what, some of these I don't want to see on my dashboard, you can feel free to tick that box to unshow them. You can move things around within here as well, but it's going to show you how many unreconciled transactions there are. So those would be connected to the bank feeds. You'll also be able to see invoices and bills. So you can see the verbiage within here is there's no accounting jargon, and that's really done from the point of view that we don't want the clients to necessarily be confused when it comes to AR versus AP and how that all like relates. So it's like invoices owed to you, bills you need to pay. And everything's hyperlinked within here, so you can jump into those different modules to use. Not every single module within Xero has AR and AP, so definitely talk with us about that. If you don't need AR and AP, there might be better solutions for you as well. And then up top here, let's just kind of touch on the drop downs. The business tab, this is where you're going to enter all the AR, the AP, where you can manage like your online payments. If you want to receive payments via credit card or ACH, you're able to set those up within Xero, as well as like bills to pay. Then you would be able to set up the AP within there, as well as set up any products and services that you might utilize on those and write checks. The accounting tab is where you're going to see your bank accounts, do your bank reconciliation, where you would be able to access any of the reports, as well as this advanced feature here. And this is just an additional settings. I don't want to touch on it too much, but a couple of them are tracking categories. So if you're looking to do multi-dimensional reporting within here, maybe by like business unit, business class, or property location, etc., you're able to set that up within those tracking categories. And as well as like the conversion balance. So if you're ever looking to move over to Xero, you can put in a beginning trial balance. This is the screen you would do that within, as well as kind of set up your chart of accounts. So one really great thing about Xero is there's a lot of import export features. So you're able to import the changes, export the changes, and any of those balances as you kind of go through. So play around with that a little bit. I don't have too much time to import that today. But what we're going to do is just jump into the reconciliation, just so I can walk you through what that looks like, how you can get the data into Xero. So what you'll see is on the left-hand side here, if you want to think of this as your banking transactions that have come through. So there's multiple ways to get these transactions into Xero. The first, and probably the easiest for you, is going to be just hooking up a bank feed. So if you're working with like a Chase as an example, and you want to connect their bank feed, these transactions will be downloaded every day without anything that you would have to do for it. There's other options to get those in, and I'll just kind of show you. So you are able to import a statement. So if you have online banking access, as an example, to the client, but they don't want you to connect the bank feed for whatever reason, you can always download any one of these file types and get them into Xero. And then you would be able to quickly import. The CSV file may take a little bit of manipulation because each CSV file comes from a bank a little bit differently. A new one that we just did release is the PDF. So if all they give you are PDF statements, you are able to drop the PDF file within here, and then that will convert it into that bank feed as well. When you do this, you will be able to see kind of how the transactions are coming in before you actually accept the import. Once everything is imported, you'll see it on the left-hand side. Then on the right-hand side is, okay, now that we see the bank feed, how do we want to classify this within Xero, essentially? So there's a couple of different ways. I usually say it's, everyone kind of remembers, like, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, you know, headmistress from like math, and I don't even know what grade they teach that in anymore. But there is like an order of operations that kind of happens. The first one is it's always going to look for a match. What a match is you created that transaction in Xero first, whether it be an AR, AP, spend money, receive money. You created a transaction within Xero, and now you're waiting for it to clear the bank. The easiest example is usually a check. So maybe I cut a check for rent, takes the landlord 5 to 7 days to cash that check. When it does clear, it'll come over here, and then I'll be able to match it seeing this green button. When I click OK on that transaction, I'm not only adding it to the GL, but I'm reconciling it at the exact same time. So it kind of takes away part of speeds up that bank reconciliation process. And I'll show you what that bank rec looks like once we get through a couple of these transactions. The second way to get these transactions in is going to be applying a bank rule. So really what a bank rule is if you think of it as like an if-then statement within Excel. Some of you may have used it, some of you may have not, but essentially what you're telling is like any or all these transactions containing these values, I want to assign this contact and go to this chart of accounts. And then you can name these rules as well as put them into which bank account that you would choose. So if you want it only to run on one bank account, or if you want it to run on all bank accounts, that's up to you. And then you can name the rule. So that's kind of bank rules, and that's really going to expedite the process within Xero to kind of get through the bank rec as fast as possible, so you can get to more of the higher value work with the advising piece. So I can just quickly click OK on this transaction. What you'll see is my balance in Xero will change when I do that. And eventually, if everything from the bank feed and here should balance, these two would be exactly the same. Doesn't always happen, obviously, because there could be some outstanding checks, deposits in transit. So just make sure you're aware of that. The third way is, I don't know if I have any examples of it, but if you don't want to keep setting up bank rules, eventually, if you keep posting the same transaction to the same account, this will start getting filled out for you. And it'll be like italicized to say, this is a suggestion for you. So that's another option. So it's like machine learning in the background to say, hey, you've always coded merchant services to merchant service fees. Is this where you want to code that? And if you want to change it, you obviously still can. The last way is just fill out the who, what, where, and why as you kind of go through each transaction. That's obviously not the quickest way to do so, but it is an option. The last piece on this page I want to talk about is this Discuss tab. Inevitably, there are going to be questions about where certain transactions might have to go within the file. And that's what this uncoded statement lines allows you to do. So you can put your question within here within real time. Then you can choose the date range that you want to work with. So I'll go back to December, which bank account you want to run it for, whether it be all or some of them. When I run this report, what it's going to do is pull in all of my comments, and then I'm able to export this in PDF or CSV. CSV is exactly what it sounds like. If you're comfortable sending that out and letting everything be modified, by all means, send that out to them. Otherwise, you can send a fillable PDF, where then you're able to send this to them and they can respond within this. And you can save this as a work paper then in wherever you need to save it. You can always save it within Xero files as well, because you do have unlimited storage within Xero files to kind of store any and all of that data within here in your different folders. That way, anybody who has access to Xero has access to Xero files and all the files that are within there. On this bank rec, so you can see like some of these, the apply rule, it doesn't really tell you where it goes. So what cache coding allows you to do is it allows to expedite that process even further. So you can sort by these first 4 columns here. So if I want to sort by payee as an example, and I want to code all of these merchant services to the same account, I can highlight them all just like I would in Excel. Go ahead and code these in any of those multidimensional reporting. Quickly click Save and Reconcile, and all these transactions are added to the GL for me. Only the ones that were highlighted. Now, if you are using a bank rule, you're going to see account and tax rate already filled out on here. So what that allows you to do is just review the information, make sure it looks accurate to you. And if it does, then there's no need to select them from the left-hand side. Just go ahead and click Save and Reconcile all. All these transactions will then be added to the GL, and it will leave you with anything that didn't have an account and tax rate filled in. So it's a really quick way as you start getting those bank rules set up. Yes, it might take more time in the beginning, but as you kind of keep adding them, it's going to make reconciliation a breeze, and then you'll get straight to the reporting. It'll save you time. Let's look at the bank rec very quickly as well. So let's look at, I do need to update my data within there. So I can choose my date range here. And now what this is going to break it down into two different sections. So you'll see my balance in Xero compared to the statement balance. Obviously, this is what we're comparing to that PDF bank statement that we do have. So if you go to the second page, you'll be able to see what's my beginning balance, what's my ending balance within here, my opening and closing balances, all the transactions that cleared during this period. And if you ever had to remove anything, because maybe there was a duplicate that was added, you can see that within the statement exceptions. You can always add reports to these too. So if I want to see, we just rolled out the bank reconciliation detail. So that's another option to put within here. And I'll just put a couple balances in here just to show you. What this allows you to do is actually type in what the opening balances is on your statement to make sure that is accurate. If not, then you know, hey, something was wrong in a prior period, as well as all of the same closing balances, but then you'll see the uncoded statement lines. You shouldn't have any of these. I just went through the rec and I didn't complete everything, but you'll still be able to see all the coded transactions, which should still tie to that bank statement. So you can kind of create this report in any way that you see fit. When you're done with the bank rec, I always recommend setting the lock date within Xero, just from the standpoint that Xero's bank rec is a live document. So go ahead and set these lock dates to make sure you can't add or change transactions prior to that date. If you need to, after setting the lock date, it's just a soft lock, so you can come back, delete the lock dates, and then you can go ahead and make those changes. But just be aware, like sometimes if you are connected to different apps and you have these lock dates set, it won't allow that app to publish it if that lock date is set, if it's before that date. So just something to be aware of. Let's talk about find and recode really quickly as well. What this allows you to do, so maybe I coded a transaction too fast, or maybe I added a new chart of account, or maybe I decided, you know what, I do want tracking categories after a period of time. What you can do is set these conditions to search for these individual transactions. I'll always usually have a balance sheet income statement open when I'm doing find and recode, because it's a good way to kind of clean things up, be like, hey, something looks a little off in repairs and maintenance. Why does it look so high? Look at it, realize maybe they coded some transactions that shouldn't be there. So I'll just use an account that I know I put transactions in. Another thing with Xero is you can search by entered by. We have unlimited users in every single one of our plans, so you'll never have to upgrade to get additional users within here. But otherwise, you can always search by contact. You could search by these tracking categories. There's a whole slew of ways you can kind of slice and dice the information and then get it back into the proper buckets that you want them in. So let's just say these 3 transactions I want coded to a different location or department. I have a couple different ways I can do it. I can either do the source transaction or I can do it with a manual journal. The source transaction is going to pick it up from one bucket, one chart of accounts, or one location, one department, and put it in the other. There's not going to be any debit, credit in and out of the chart of accounts to kind of see that detail like there is with a manual journal. So that's why we leave it up to you as to which way you would want to see it. Either way, you're going to have an audit log of what changes happened. So let me just show you by changing these. So I'll change this to Boulder and I'll change this to C. Now, when I review these transactions, I'm going to get this report, this recode summary, just to say, this is who changed these transactions. Here what was changed on all of these transactions, and here's the transactions that were involved. If I hold down Control, click on a transaction, it'll open up in a new tab for you. You'll be able to see the audit log of the transaction and say who created, approved, and reconciled, which basically means accepted the transaction, and then who changed the transaction. And then in each individual one, you can see what changed between them. And if you ever want to go back to that report, you can just click this recoded button and it's going to take you back to this recode summary that we were just in. So it's a good audit log of these transactions to kind of see what happened. The last piece I'll touch on briefly is the reports tab. Just to kind of show you everything that you're able to do within Xero. So I'll just start in like this management report that is kind of a good place to start, especially if you're putting together some kind of deliverable package. So you can modify these in any way you want. If you say, you know what, I want the balance sheet to come first, you can always click in here, say add, remove, reorder reports. I want these, I don't want these two reports, and I'm not using AR, so I can go this way. I can always go to my income statement then, and then I am able to choose my range. So let me just put in the date here. So we'll just start with this, just to kind of show you what it looks like. But what you'll notice when you get to Xero is there's no sub accounts at the chart of accounts level, which can really throw people for a loop. Completely get it. I was in the same boat when I came to Xero from practice saying, well, how do I group these accounts? And I don't want each one to be its own separate line item in this way. The reasoning for it is if you need to change things, a lot of times going the chart of account method with sub accounts, you have to go back to the chart of accounts, change the subgroup, come back to the report and make sure all the changes were made. Where with Xero, all you need to do is, if I wanted to move advertising to cost of goods sold as an example, all I need to do is come into edit layout, drag and drop where I want these things to show. I can reorder these in any way that I want. So let me put that out of there. If I needed to create a group, this is the screen I would do it in. So I can say, here's all my auto expenses. I'll just call them auto. And then it's up to me if I want to show or hide the subtotals detail or not. If I do it this way, this is exactly how it'll show. If I keep the caret symbol open, it's going to show me all of the detail and that subtotal. So just for the case of this, we're going to close this up. And then maybe down below, I want to see a subschedule of that. I don't want it on the face of my financial statements, but maybe I want to see it down below. So I can create this auto expense subschedule down below. I can create footnotes as well. M&E seems high or something, whatever I want to put in there to call out to the client, to call out to the reviewer, to call out to the partner, whatever it may look like, you're able to do that within here. We've seen some people do simple comps with footnotes, reviews with footnotes in here, where you can kind of template that out using report templates and all the verbiage that you want. And then obviously all the numbers will change when you do that from period to period. But if there's certain things you want to change within here, you can double click into income and you could just call it revenue if you wanted to. But you're able to change all of these with like the bold, create your own formulas within here. That's what the little F means there. Columns, we'll just kind of talk about it briefly, but there is like a variance column. It'll just kind of show you the difference between the two periods. So we'll do that. Let's throw in percentage of income. I like to show this one because it does common size everything and you're allowed to do multiple periods against one another. So it doesn't have to just be the one period that you're working with. And then you, like I said, if you know it's 2021 already, you can just drag it in there. And if you need to link a footnote, as an example, you can always put notes within here, and then my auto expense is in my income statement and auto. So you're able to kind of add all of this as well as these tracking categories. When you're done with these reports, what you can do is update them, save them as custom reports, and then that way, every single time you run this report, it's going to be this exact same. You'll just have to pick the date range that you're working with. So I could just go save as custom, and then management report. And now I'll easily be able to access this report. The last piece that I do want to show briefly is what a report template would look like. So you can see here in my custom, here's the report that I just changed. But if I go into this advisor tab here, these are all my report templates that I showed you previously. So if I just run like this Schedule C report template as an example, this is just an example of like what you can do with the reporting. So if you want to regroup things for book versus tax purposes within here to kind of help you with the prep work of the tax return or the review of it, let's put in. So you can see I still have multiple reports, but now all I did is I regrouped all of my chart of accounts into different groupings, if you will, and I map them to where I want to see them on like a Schedule C as an example. So it's just an easy way for me to visualize it before putting it into the tax return to kind of review it, to be like, yeah, something looks off, something looks high, and it allow you to reconcile back potentially to your book income number. So you can build in these separate formulas here. If you have business use for mileage, if you have you can change these rates within here yourself. But you can just build out these different formulas within Xero's reporting if it's something you're looking to do, separately stated items, and then as well as this additional tax schedule is just kind of my idea to say, hey, how can we reconcile it back to like book Schedule C income? So there's no way to do tax journal entries within here. If you wanted to, you would export to Excel, do your book to tax items, whether it be repairs and maintenance, depreciation, not repairs and maintenance, meals and entertainment, depreciation, whatever that may be. And then you can always publish these reports. And when you do publish these reports, I'll just show you an example of what one looks like. Let's do this one. It'll open somewhere. I'm just not sure which screen. So this is an example of like what a completed report would look like. You're able to put your like logo up here if you wanted to, but it'll spit out a table of contents, all your different disclosures that you wanted put in there, your comp report, and then all of your different reports that you wanted, along with all of your footnotes that you had created or templated out for the firm. All right, so I know that was a lot in a little amount of time. I did see one question come through, and it was, can you turn off the tax rate function at a global level in Xero? I'm assuming that means within here. So you aren't able to turn this tax rate off because that's how it does calculate some of these items. So within the US market, everything's going to be, should be tax exempt for the most part, besides the stuff that you're going to put on to like a sales invoice. There is a new sales tax module within Xero that is very in depth as well. Obviously, I don't have time to cover that today, but if it is something you're interested in, we can definitely cover that in more detail. But the reasoning for the tax rate is it was developed, the software was developed in New Zealand. So there's like GST and VAT taxes that are applicable there. So there was just no way to remove this tax rate at this point. But good question.